one?
Yep, they went off.
I've only got one complaint.
This is an interview with Elizabeth Woodhouse on June the 29th, 1999. Her, what year?
I'm 87.
Her 87th and my 89th year. So we know what we're talking about. This is done for the archives of the Clark County Historical Society. I turn now to the Venerable Elizabeth. Hi, Venerable.
Hi, Roland.
Tell us about how you began.
Well, I was born in Cincinnati in 1911. When I was 11 months old, my family moved to Springfield, and I've been here ever since. I have 4 children, and my husband died when we were in our 50s. And my kids who live in larger cities, one in Chicago and one in Cincinnati, one in Naples, all wanted me to move out of Springfield. They thought that by all means I should meet somebody and marry again, you know. And as far as I'm concerned, once was enough. And so I wasn't interested in that. And I wouldn't leave Springfield for anything. The size of it, and of course the people, the wonderful, wonderful friends that I have in Springfield. And I certainly have not regretted staying here. It's my home. My kids come here, they know where I am, and we get together quite often. They come here, I go there much less often, and they talk to me very often on the phone, and it's been just great. I've loved it.
I heartily agree.
So recently, I retired at age 85.
From what?
I was the director of the Greater Springfield Daycare Center. And I taught there. I was the manager there. That was at 825 East High Street. And I was the manager there for 30 years. And while I was there, we were on it was preschool kids, you know. And while I was there, we were on the lunch program. And so I had a call from the main office of USDA saying that they approved of the way I administered the program, and would I be interested in carrying on for people who cared for children in their homes. And I said yes, and I started to do that with the board's approval. And when I retired, I thought this would be a great thing for me to do, because I'm not going to sit around and watch soap operas. And so the board agreed, and they stayed in business so that I could be in business for another 20 years. So I really worked for 50 years at the daycare center. And when I retired, I thought, well, this was in September of 97, and I thought, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What is unfinished? Get that degree, which was interrupted. I went to college in Mount St. Joseph in Cincinnati in 1929 and 30, and of course, those of you who are our age know what happened then. Others know it from history.
Yeah.
The Great Depression. And my parents weren't able to send me back, and so I only had 1 year. And then, while I was rearing my family, I took classes at Wittenberg at night, and took a summer session at Ohio State, and so I had 48 credits. And so I looked around, I called Mount St. Joseph, and I said, would you be interested in a dropout? And they said, oh, yes! And so then, but as we talked, they said, well, you have to come down to campus for classes. And I wasn't about to go on I-75 daily for classes. And of course, naturally, I tried Wittenberg because I love Wittenberg. I'm a an honorary alum of Wittenberg. And I've been president of the Guild, Wittenberg Guild, and I really like Wittenberg very, very much. But they didn't have a program that took life experiences into consideration toward a degree. So I shopped around a little bit more, and I finally ended up at Urbana. And Urbana had a wonderful program, and it's called UU for Life, and they had 9 subjects, each 8 weeks long, and you were supposed to be a junior before you started, but you know, I was kind of a halfway sophomore, and they accepted me, and in 18 months I did get the degree. So last June the 2nd, or May the 2nd of this year, I graduated, and I didn't know that everybody in the whole community was as interested in graduating as I was. I was glad to get the diploma, but there was a standing ovation at the graduation ceremonies.
Pretty thrilling, huh?
3 newspapers and a TV station came over, and we were on the air. And so since then, I've had many congratulatory letters, one from the Vice President of Wittenberg, and they also sent me flowers. They were glad to see me graduate. And one from Congressman Hobson, among others, and many from my friends. I belong to 15 women's clubs, and so I have a lot of friends. And so I had a big party. 80 people were here after the graduation ceremonies. And then I figured, I'm where I was in September of 97. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? You know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I'm going to continue getting an education. And so again, I shop around to see. Now, Urbana, which I would stay at, or Wittenberg, do not offer master degrees in a subject that I'm interested in. Urbana.
Which is what?
Well, Urbana only has education. And I would be glad to take education, but I don't. And I don't mean I wouldn't like to teach, but I don't like the idea of the alarm clock. So that's out for me. Of course, nobody would hire me anyway to teach, because kids would look at me and think, well, anything she knows, she's over the hill. So I'm interested in the older people. I'm interested in my own age, in what's happening in all aspects of life for people my age. So McGregor School at Antioch has a master's degree in gerontology.
Is that so?
Perfect. That's what I want to know. I want to know what happens to the brain, why some of us can continue to exist the way we always have, and others end up with Alzheimer's, or, of course, I understand physical ailments, but there are a lot of people who have minimal physical ailments, or none, at this age, who are not availing themselves of the opportunities that present themselves. And so my goals I can't say I'm going out and teach classes or anything, but I certainly can talk to people who are my friends, who are of like age. Most of them are younger, and they may be excited. Now, one of the clubs I belong to is the Women's Town Club. And right after my graduation, at the next meeting, the president of the club announced my graduation, and of course everybody applauded. And a waiter came over to me, and he knelt down and he said, I'm a waiter, but I always wanted to be a teacher. But he said, now I'm 51 years old, and I kind of I've been thinking it's too old to go into the educational process. And he said, now, by gosh, I'm going to do it. He said, if you can do it at your age, I'm going to do it. So in January, he starts back to college to learn to be a teacher. So I think I can do that. And some other people have said to me, that's what I ought to do. My college career was interrupted, and that's what I ought to do. I ought to get back and get my degree.
Now, is the Ohio Department of Aging doing anything in this field?
Not that I know of. They do a lot with the Golden Buckeye cards in the parks and things like that for older people. And of course they lobby for, Social Security and such programs. But I don't know that they're doing anything in education.
Well, I'll leave it to you to get them excited about it.
Well, maybe that's my goal. I had to write a 5-page presentation on what my goals were, and it's into Antioch, and they haven't accepted it yet, so, they might not even accept me, so maybe I won't get to do this, but I kind of feel like they will.
Oh, I do too. Sure. it'll be classroom work or largely
No,
at home?
it's independent study. It's largely at home. The program is you will go down to the campus for 5 days, and with 2 of their faculty members and 2 of my community members that I choose to help me, we set up the program for the next, and it will be 8 to 10 quarters. Now, the people I've chosen to help me are Donna Frederick, who's head of Elderly United, because I feel like she is a community person who knows a lot about gerontology. And this person was supposed to have had an advanced degree, and Donna holds a master's degree from the University of Dayton, so she qualifies, and she has agreed to help me. And the second person I chose to help me is Dr. Newman, Dr. Charles J. Newman from Urbana, who was one of my professors. And while he's in his 50s, so he certainly isn't in the age of gerontology, but he holds 5 degrees, and he has a mother who for 3 years has been in a nursing home in Columbus, and he visits her daily. So he has learned a lot about the nursing home facilities in that length of time, and I feel he'll be very helpful. Now, what I have to do is study at home and do the required work, and then these 2 people have to edit it or see that I am doing what I'm supposed to do to get this degree, and they have to assure the university that I am either an A or B student. I don't think C students really go for master's degrees, so I don't think that there's any problem with anybody who goes for a master's degree. But there are no exams, which is kind of nice, and there are no grades. You just know you're either an A or a B. But since I was a magna cum laude from Urbana, I think I can do all right at McGregor School.
You won't have to write a thesis?
Yes, the second year I go down to the campus again for 4 days, and then they tell you how to write a thesis, and then the second year I do the thesis. I think I know how, because one of the requirements for my bachelor's degree was a 100-page portfolio depicting my career experience, which, by the way, is being put into a coffee table book.
That's so?
Yes.
Well.
A New York publisher is interested in it, and it's not going to be just the way I wrote it. He's going to have a writer do it, and he's going to bring in some other people of similar age who have done things. One of the other nice things that has happened was a woman called me who's studying for a PhD at Josephinum in Columbus, and she said that her thesis was going to be on women past age 60 who have earned a degree. And she wants me to be a part of her study, and I think that's going to be real interesting. That will be this fall.
Well, you got your hands full.
Well, that's the way it should be.
Right.
For me and a lot of other people who are this age.
I remember Dr. Del Valle, who used to be my physician here in town, regularly checked me out in spite of my sinuses and so on. He said, "You're going to be living at 115. So I think you and I better have a little race."
Well, I certainly hope to be 100. And I remember a few years ago, one of the funny things I remember about being 100 is I went to the Elderly United annual meeting, and they announced that this was several years ago, and they announced at that time that there were 7 people in Clark County who were over 100 years of age, and 3 of them were able to come to this meeting. So they put a microphone in front of one dear little old lady, and they asked her what she owed her longevity. And she said, "Well, I ate right, I never smoked, and I read the Bible every day." So they went to the second lady, and she said, "Well, just the same thing." So the third person was a gentleman, and they put the microphone in front of him, and he said, "Just what those ladies said, and I ate a lot of prunes." So, that's what keeps you on this planet, I guess.
That's right.
Live right, don't smoke, eat right.
Well, getting back to what you did for this good number of years in Springfield, do you feel there was a reward in your life that you could see in the community?
I think Springfield has grown. It's still a wonderful place it was, but it's much, much better. There's so many positive things in Springfield. Just think of the symphony and the arts center and all those things that we have that just are so wonderful for a community this size.
The very latest, the Rocking Horse House.
Yes.
Isn't that fantastic?
That really is. That's a wonderful thing. And it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't a really place that you could point to with a great deal of pride, but it is now. It's a wonderful looking facility.
Yeah.
It's very great. There's only one thing, as far as I'm concerned, that's wrong with this city of Springfield. I live on a corner house, and when it snows, the snow whirls around the corner and just fills up my driveway. So along comes the street
I know.
and puts all that snow from the center of the street in the gutter, and every year I get stuck in my driveway. Every single year, no matter how I rev it or gun it or anything, I get stuck out there. So I wish they would think of something else to do. I don't know, take it with them or put it on that strip between the sidewalk and the street or something.
Well, Maxine and I lived on Winding Trail on a long driveway uphill, and every time I cleaned out the driveway, here came the truck and filled it up again. And I don't know what the answer is.
Well, I don't know why they could, instead of putting it in the gutter, why they couldn't go one step farther, run down the gutter and put it on that strip. Of course, you'd still have it, but maybe you could clear that a little bit. I don't know either. I don't know the answer. That takes somebody, that's not gerontology. So it's not my field of study.
Well, you've got to hire a younger person to dig you out.
Yeah.
Who is now supporting the work that you retired from?
Well, the Greater Springfield Daycare Center started in 1920 as a nursery school, and it was day nursery it was called, and it was where the Central Engine House is now. It was an old city prison, and it was for children who some interested people had seen little children in inadequate care, either in the care of an older sibling or maybe nobody while the parent was at work. And mostly these were one-parent families and very, very poor. And so they started this in 1920, and it was 5 cents a day to take your child there, or a quarter a week. And sometimes the people couldn't even pay that. And so it stayed there until 1950, and when it moved to 825 East High Street. And so when I retired, they closed it. We sold the building. The building had been owned by the Brown family, and we bought it from them. We sold the building. But at that time, we were no longer a monopoly in Springfield because, after World War II, when so many women were in and young mothers were in the workforce, daycare centers just sprang up all over the city. Mm-hmm. And then with the demise of downtown Springfield in the 70s, we just didn't have the clientele that we had had previously. Our building could house 100 children, and we had that many, but we were down to 30 or 40, and so it just had outlived its usefulness. So after 60-some years in the community, it closed its doors.
Very interesting. Well, you've had, I'd say, not a hectic life, but you've imposed, I think, a physical regimen that defies age.
Well,
You just come and go, and you come and go.
well, I have to thank the Lord that I've had good health, and that contributes a lot to doing things, because I don't have to put up with some of the infirmities and ailments that some of my friends do, and so I think my mind's still working. At least I passed those exams, at Urbana University.
I think it's so exciting to get the news that we're going to have all these new school buildings, we hope.
Yes, it is exciting. It's very fine to see the things that are happening. And I live in Greenlawn Village, and they're doing all our streets over now, paving them, and it's really, the city takes real good care of us.
Yeah. What do you see in the future for Springfield? Do you think it's going to continue on the path of being a living room community, largely in the services, or do you think it might actually attract back some industry?
I don't know about industry, and I don't know about, they've always said that Navistar was a mixed blessing because they pay such high salaries, and that other industries don't want to compete with that, and so I think that's here to stay. We have to put up with that. But I don't know about industry, and as far as businesses are concerned, I can remember years and years ago when the prognosis for Springfield was that we wouldn't have too many retail establishments because we were between Dayton and Columbus, and that when people had major purchases in mind, they would go to one of those cities, and that has somewhat come to be true. But there are people of great means in Springfield. Just look at the housing that goes on here, the beautiful, beautiful new houses. And I think we're all right the way we are. If we just stay on this even keel, we're all right, no problem.
I'm utterly amazed at the number of condominiums that are being built and have been built in this community, and I wonder from whence the people came.
Well, that's because that's part of the gerontology. That's because the over 85 group of people are staying alive. Medications and the progress in medicine has contributed to that keeping people alive longer, and so there are a lot of us, and so mostly people don't need the large homes anymore. I like mine. I'm going to stay here as long as I can, but the condominiums are usually beautiful and adequate for people's needs, and they're very nice. But there are a lot of people who are in this age group, and so they are needed. They really are needed.
Just this past week, I visited the new assisted living facility known as on the Fox Run out there just beyond Enon. It takes care of about 95 people, and it's about half full. It's quite new. A lovely place, just beautiful, with a very caring staff. And I see more and more of these assisted living places being developed to further increase our longevity.
Well, that assisted living gives the elderly people the right to make some of their own decisions. They don't go into a place where everything's done for them or everything's decided for them, and it's just, and yet their needs are cared for. They don't have to do things that are beyond their strength anymore, like carry out garbage and wash windows and things like that. And so it's just wonderful that these are available for the people.
Have you ever offered yourself to the Springfield School District as a counselor or teacher while you're doing this studying?
No, I haven't done that. I've had a lot of publicity. I paper so much that if they would want me, they can seek me out.
My grandchild, Heather Turner, young married and now a recent mother, is switching from a job back into teaching. And she got a tough school right off the bat. And she's quite excited about getting back into public school work again. It's a great field, and Atlanta, we do need good teachers.
Yes, that's right. Well, when I was at the Greater Springfield Daycare Center, I was on a speakers bureau for PTAs. You know, the PTAs were flourishing back then. I used to go around and tell people how to rear their children, you know, all the while hoping mine would live up to what I was saying. And somehow or other, nobody calls me anymore. I guess they feel like what I know is not that important. You know, it's not relevant anymore.
Well, having retired 24 years ago myself, I found the same thing true. The telephone inquiries and the personal consultations are practically dried up.
Well, I guess they just think a lot of water's gone over the dam since I reared children, so why should I be telling anybody else how to do it?
I think there's sure have been a lot of erosion there. You see, it belonged to 15 clubs.
Yes.
Primarily women's organizations. Mm-hmm. What do you do with all these things?
Well, some of them are social, and I belong to Authors Guild, and we write. I've written 5 books myself, and we write and criticize each other's works and, you know, that sort of thing. And I'm the Clark County Chair for the Ohio Library Association, and so I acquaint that organization with literary matters that happen in this community, send them pieces from paper that had to do with somebody who won an award maybe for writing and that kind of thing. And also I have the right to nominate people for outstanding books. And a couple of years ago, Imogene Bowles from Wittenberg received an award for her body of poetry, and that was my nomination. So I do that, and I'm on the board of the Friends of the Library, and so I like to be on boards. I like to help people think, and I like that a lot better than just to have lunch and cards. I think I only belong to one such club. Most of my clubs are educational. I belong to a literary club and things of that sort. And it's all continuing education, really. And so that's what I like more than... Now, well, you know, I tell myself when I go down to the town club twice a month for lunch and cards, I tell myself that a good afternoon of bridge is just math.
Yeah. Yeah. But in the case of 4 women playing together, it's also a good deal of gab, I found.
That's very true, but then you have to keep up with what's going on in the community, and that's a good way to do it.
But it's funny, when 4 men play, there's not much conversation, except exclamation.
Well, I think bridge and the beauty shops are where women get a lot of... well, maybe you could call it gossip, but I prefer to call it keeping up with the news, you know, what's happening in the community, what's happening in the city.
One of my current male bridge players in a 4-male group, I spoke to him the other day and saying, I just became a great-grandfather for the 3rd time. Well, he being 94 years old said, I now have 40 great-grandchildren. Imagine that?
Well, I have 8.
Yeah.
And the youngest will be 5 in September, so I don't know, I think that's stopped.
No more in the oven, huh?
And the next generation, the great-greats, my oldest great-grandson is 12, so I don't know that that will happen in my lifetime. I might not be on this planet when that happens.
Well, Elizabeth, I think we've come to the end of our tape, and it says to me, and it will say to me when I get this thing rewritten, that you have led what I consider to be a very productive and also exciting life.
I think so too.